Has anyone ever rambled on and on and on about their problems to you without stopping to the point where you just wanted to walk away?
I think I got about 20 minutes of that for you coming. Coming up, we'll talk about why letting them do that and being there for them might be just the thing both of you need.
But first, this is the Fit Mess, where together we learn to develop habits that help us live beyond our mental health struggles to create happier, healthier lives.
He's Zach. He lives in the future with his anxiety.
He's Jeremy, and he lives in the past with his depression. And we get together once a week in the present to share the obstacles we face and how we overcome them.
So, Zach, how you been?
That's a great question. I'm not exactly sure, which is pretty much the same thing I said to my therapist the other day when she asked me that very question.
I've had the same thing. I was just at the physical therapist's office yesterday dealing with some knee stuff, and she asked, have you been since the last treatment? And I just was like, I have no idea. I've been so caught up in stress and anxiety and being busy, all kinds of work stuff, home stuff going on. It's just one of those times in my life right now where it's just like vine to vine, where I just feel like, 2 weeks is a minute. Is that what you're going through too?
Yeah, pretty much. I know, I talk to my therapist once a week, and when she asked the question, I literally was just like, well, I just talked to you yesterday. Wait, no, that was a week ago. There was a whole bunch of stuff that happened in the middle, and I was like, oh, right, that triggered me, this triggered me, that triggered me, that was stressful, this was anxiety producing, this was depressing, that was a happy moment, this was cool, this I didn't like, this sucked, that didn't suck. All of a sudden I was like, oh, and there's all these things in the middle of it. And I don't think I realized how quick it went by or how stressful it was until I verbalized it all and was like, oh, no wonder why today I'm tired and I've got nerve pain in my foot and my muscles hurt and the physical manifestation of my anxiety was hitting. So absolutely. Yeah.
It's funny to me that you had that in the therapist's office, because I've had similar things, just being in the physical therapist's office, when she's doing the treatment, I have a moment where I'm like, okay, this is all I have to do right now. And everything else goes away for 5 minutes and I can finally sort of settle. I was at the dentist the other day. Same thing. I'm laying there. I'm like, there's nothing else I can do right now but this. I just need to be here. And it's funny, those forced moments, it's maybe this is a solution I'm looking for. I need to calendar block time for nothing, right? Just to let it settle. And maybe it's meditation, formally or whatever. But it's just interesting that I need to apparently schedule time to just not worry about everything or not have to put out some fire from minute to minute, because it's those forced moments where you have the therapist or someone a place you have to be, a thing you have to do, where you can finally go, okay, this gets all of my attention instead of everything getting some of it.
Yep. I actually have I use an app for my calendar for work, because you've seen my calendar. It's busy. It's always blocked. I was on a call with somebody today who's like, oh, let me schedule a meeting for us for Monday. And he opened up his calendar. He's like, oh, you have no availability Monday? And I was like, no.
You have no availability till next April.
Yeah. But this app that I have, it connects to my calendar, and I have a rule in there, and it searches I think it searches 3 or 4 weeks out, and it looks for blocks of space of an hour to an hour and a half, and it marks it as focus time or break time, and just blocks it off on my calendar so that I don't have those days where it's nonstop meetings. I actually have a break in the middle of it, and those days I just get up and go sit on the couch, meditate, do roll around on the ground on a foam roller or something like that. Take a few minutes to do nothing. It's been really handy.
Well, that's the thing is I don't know that maybe more people are more like your calendar than mine. My calendar, when you look at it, not super full, but there's always stuff to be being done. And so it's whether it's responding to the emails that are coming in, responding to, whatever stuff is going on with the kids, things that you can't really plan for. My day sort of fills up with those, partially because I'm not intentional enough about blocking out time and being dedicated about it. Ironic that I'm talking about the things you don't plan for suddenly showing up, and one just happened to you in the middle of this recording. Actually, I think that's the fourth one since we got on this call.
It is. It has, let's see. we're only a few minutes into the show, and we've been on the call for like 40 minutes
I
already.
know.
This is
Yeah.
all we've got.
So it's hard when, you're basically swatting flies, right? Trying to just get the day under control to then just pick, okay, right now I'm just going to stop and deal with whatever I'm not dealing with internally because I've been dealing with everything externally for so long.
I am surprised, like in today's world, like that we actually get as much done as we do get done, like focused work, like smart intellectual stuff, like, building rockets and things like that. Because I know, like, engineers who work on spaceships and, that at, SpaceX or NASA or whatever, right? They've got kids, they've got soccer practice,
Right.
they have all the same things I do.
Yeah.
And like, I can hardly get the dishwasher loaded correctly, and they're designing things that go up into space.
Right.
So it is surprising to me that with like all the distractions, all the things, all the stuff that we're constantly move, that we get anything done anymore.
Here's something I've learned about myself recently, and I think this may be why I'm feeling so stressed, is I'm wildly motivated to do nothing. So like if I have a bunch of stuff to get done, I'm going to do it really fast. Like I'm going to throw everything I have at getting it done so that I can get to the point where I have nothing to do.
Yeah.
And so I feel like for the last 2 weeks, my life has been get it all done, get it all done, get it all done. Oh, time for bed.
Mm-hmm.
Where like normally I can kind of space things out and work in some self-care time during the day and do the things I need to do to keep myself sane. And because I haven't had that ability to just do nothing. I think that's why I'm feeling this like ramped up feeling, because I haven't had as much time for self-care. But it is funny how if the carrot dangling at the end of the stick is you get to do nothing as soon as this is done, man, I'll work harder on that thing than anything I've ever worked on in my life.
Yeah, see, I'm the opposite. Like if I've got a whole bunch of stuff to do, I'm gonna go, you know what, let me sit down and do nothing for about an hour, and then I'm gonna crush this.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Why does that work for you?
I don't know. Because, well, sometimes I don't crush it. Sometimes I just continue to do nothing and I don't get the thing done.
Right, that would be my danger. Is I would never get started on the doing.
We can do a whole another show on procrastination, which I am real good at. Unfortunately, too. I work better under pressure is what I tell myself, but no, I just put everything off.
Yeah, that's the anxiety telling you all kinds of lies.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know about you, but I am, going back to the original question of how are you doing? I know this intellectually, and every time it happens, it always surprises me. But, I go through the week without really processing anything or thinking about everything that's going on in my life.
Yeah.
And then it's that moment when somebody says, how is everything going? And you start talking about how everything is going. And, I've said this 100 times, it activates different parts of your brain when you talk through the same things that you're thinking about.
Yep.
It activates different parts and you think about it differently. And how many times have you had an aha moment when you're just explaining something to a friend or whatever? I mean, that's one of the reasons why I like doing this podcast is like you and I get on and we literally just talk about things. And sometimes I have aha moments that I don't really like let loose into the show, but like we're just talking. Like, oh, so that's why I do that thing. Oh, yeah, that's it. But it just amazes me how we keep all of this stuff bottled up. Just a simple, how are you doing? From a physical perspective, mental perspective, spiritual perspective, we keep it all bottled up, and it doesn't come naturally to talk about this stuff, right? But when you do, I think it is super, super powerful.
Well, and we're also increasingly isolated. So I don't know, many people might not have someone to talk to about that, especially guys, right? Like how many guys are going around talking about their feelings and what's going on with them and, how they're doing. That doesn't come up super often, I think, for a lot of guys.
No, it's not. And I mean, even, myself included, like, I talk about my feelings. I process my emotions and my feelings. And, it has been met with that's not normal, reaction from a lot of people. I think it's normal. Women think it's normal. Other men, some women and other men don't think it's very, very interesting.
Yeah, and you'll get kind of one of two responses. It's either the like that's not normal. Like you'll clearly see in their response that what you're doing is not socially acceptable to that person, or that person just kind of walks away. Right? Like they just, I'm done here. This is not for me. See ya. But that was, when I was seeing a therapist on a regular basis, and you're going every week, so maybe you have this experience too. But this is one of my favorite things about having a regularly scheduled therapy appointment or pain resolution, whatever's going on. When it's on the calendar, typically, if you're like me, you look at the, what's coming up on the calendar this week, and you see, oh, I've got that appointment, and it makes me think, what am I going to tell them when I get there? And that's been the thing. I just haven't even really had time to look at the calendar to know what's coming, but that's one of my favorite parts, because I'll start thinking about, how am I doing? What's going on with me? What am I going to tell my therapist when I see him on Thursday? And I can begin the process of processing whatever's going on, because I can almost anticipate what they're going to tell me. And just having it on the calendar is sort of that check-in, not only for that time, but ahead of time, to start thinking about what is really going on with me, and how can I get through this, crisis, for lack of a better word, now, rather than waiting until then to get the inevitable advice.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I said, the number of times I don't usually show up for my therapy session without having something processed ahead of time. Like last week, I definitely showed up, and she's like, "How you been?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I don't know."
Right.
But it definitely almost like yoga for me. Like I won't do yoga unless I go to a class.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it doesn't exist. And I don't have the, I don't know, discipline, wherewithal to like make that part of my daily routine at home. And I can't figure that one out. Yoga, like I can't do it unless I'm in a 97-degree room and
Ugh.
a bunch of other people around judging my lack of flexibility. Yeah, I could do
It's because you're so competitive. You're trying to be better than everyone else in the room.
I know. When I'm at home,
Even with yoga,
myself, I'm like, this is so boring.
It does. It sucks doing it by yourself in the living room. It's not the same spiritual experience. I have the same thing with my cold plunging. I have a little tub on the back deck, and I use it a couple times a week. But it sucks, right? Like, it's not fun to sit there by myself in cold water for 5 to 10 minutes just for the sake of taking care of me. It's more fun to go with a bunch of people and shoot the shit about whatever and be distracted and have that community aspect of whatever's going on. That's way more motivating to do these things than to just hold yourself accountable. Yep, checked it off the box. I did the thing for me today.
But I do think it's good for me anyway. Like when I talk to my therapist, I can compare my therapy sessions from 20 years ago to my therapy sessions now.
Mhm.
And 20 years ago, it was, hey, doc, I've got problem X, Y, and Z. And they're like, well, okay, well, let's try this and let's do this. And have you tried, this and this and like all these different things? And now I show up and I'm like, so listen, doc, I've got this problem and I tried to meditate on it. I used CBD. I did this, I did that, and I did this thing, and then I did this, and I read this medical paper, and like blah, 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 like all these things, and it's not quite working. So I tried this, and then that worked, and then I tweaked it this way, and they're usually just like, oh, that's cool.
See you next week.
And like, there's not a lot of advice anymore. I'm just thinking out loud for the most part. 20 years ago, it was like, hey, I feel like this and I don't know why. And,
Right.
Today it's, I feel like this. And here's the reasons why I think that is. List them all off. My mom was cruel. My dad didn't pay attention. My dad didn't love me. I was fat. All the things.
Right.
And they're like, you're probably spot on. And I have to, every now and again, like I have to ask for like fact checks. Like, hey, am I crazy in thinking like X, Y, and Z? And she's like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Again, it is so good to, even though like I don't need like that direct, hey, you should use this approach, or you should have, when you have these feelings, take note of them. Like I do all that stuff already.
Right.
But it is so good to have it on the calendar for a week like last week where, how are you doing? And I was like, oh, I haven't even thought about me for the last week. It's been about other people and things I have to do and this and that. And oh, right, my foot hurts. Why does my foot hurt? Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. You're supposed to be like, putting lotion on it or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
it is so good to just have that check in every now and again, even if you don't need it. Like, I probably don't need a therapist because I understand how it all works for the most part. Like, I'm not saying I know everything, but I know it enough to like interrupt my own thoughts and do my own thing on it. But I still do it because it is a good reminder for me to like take that moment for myself.
Yeah, it's funny you were talking about comparing your therapy now to previously, right? 20 years ago, whenever. I know more and more. I mean, I go far less than I used to. I used to go weekly and then monthly, and now I just kind of go, sort of as needed. Um, but I got to a point with my therapist where pretty much every week he would say, "Is this working for you? Like, do you feel like you need this?" Because I feel like I mostly just validate your feelings. Like, you come in and tell me things, and I say, "Yeah, that makes sense that you would be feeling that way because what you're going through is really hard." So that's really interesting. But the other thing that happened more and more frequently was having the appointment and being like, I don't really have anything to talk about. Like, things are kind of good, right? Like the more you learn how to deal with this stuff on your own, the less you need that resource. It's certainly still wildly valuable. And I do think there's a lot of value in just having something on the calendar, whether you're going through something or not. Because if your life is anything like what I think we've described here, you're probably ignoring a lot and taking care of everything else around you. So if you can just have that hour a month or whatever it is to check in and deal with whatever you're not dealing with, it can only do good for you.
Yeah, there's a really cool podcast, and I love the name of the podcast because it's a CrossFit podcast, but it's called the best hour of the day, and it's referring to the hour that you do CrossFit, which my soul leaves my body during that hour. So I don't know if it's the best hour of my day, but it's an hour of my day. But the other best hour of my day is when I have therapy. Like, again, she won't even say a word. I just talk for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of it, I feel better. Like, there is just so much power in getting shit off your chest. Like, we did an episode on complaining.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can complain. You can do all those things. Like, if you're complaining about the same thing over and over and over again and nothing's changing, that's insanity. But, just getting things off of your chest it's a lot of power. And then getting advice on what's on your chest is a whole nother level. But like, sometimes you just need to unload.
All right. Well, I think we've gotten enough off of our chest in our last several minutes of rambling. I hope it's been valuable for you. If it has, and you think someone else may benefit from it as well, please share this episode with them. Head to our website, thefitmess.com, and hit that share button so others can hear what you've heard here today. We thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode at thefitmess.com.
See you around.
We know this podcast is amazing, and it doesn't seem to lack anything, but we need a legal disclaimer. Prior to implementing anything discussed in this podcast, it is your responsibility to conduct your own research and consult your physician. You should assume that Jeremy and Zach don't know what they're talking about, and they're not liable for any physical or emotional issues that occur directly or indirectly from listening to this podcast.